So what I do normally when I talk about my work is that I go in reverse chronological order because, to be honest, I don't mind if you get sleepy and bored looking at my early work, but I don't really want you nodding off looking at my more recent work, obviously, because I'm a bit closer to that at the moment. So in reverse order, I'm going to start with my Instagram drawings. And it's been the last 2 or 3 years, I suppose, with the kind of COVID topping of the last year, have been quite quiet for me in terms of exhibiting. And I have kind of, I wouldn't call it a retreat, but I've been living a little bit in my drawings and using my drawings maybe to have a little bit of a kind of, not middle-aged crisis, but like a middle-aged artist crisis. I think it's different. And I've been using Instagram as a way of sharing my work. I was like a late adopter of social media, to be honest. I kind of never really liked it and found the people that were into it awful somehow. But I do like the thing with Instagram that you can put an image and then you can put text underneath. And it reminds me a little bit of when I was at primary school and we kept a diary, a visual diary with like a few lines underneath each entry. So I would say, you know, went to my grandparents' house or something, and then there'd be a drawing of a tractor and me, and then some clouds or something. And I almost got into that kind of daily habit with the Instagram drawings of just making 1 or 2 a day. And it's not like I've gone rogue, but I have in the last few years just you know, a bit like an old man in an old people's home that just shouts obscenities. I've just been saying rude things about other artists, but nobody in particular. I don't name anybody. And maybe in particular curators as well I've been taking pot shots at. It's funny because like ever since I was a student, I guess I was always told that you shouldn't make work that somehow poked fun at the art world, like that it was naff to do that. And, you know, that it's, I don't know, people roll their eyes, I think. I mean, when people see people like joking about the art world, I think they find it off. But I think Instagram and, Instagram in particular has allowed people to be satirical about the art world using memes and so on in a way where it kind of is okay, you know. And actually, there's quite a lot of really interesting people that are lampooning the art world on Instagram. So that's what these are. They're just me, you know, burping out bad vibes about the art world. And in particular, in the last few years, I've noticed this kind of reverence for themselves that artists have developed. You know, like we live in quite a troubled time with things going wrong and like awful politicians and so on. And then artists will make these big statements, and I wonder, I don't think they realize that people outside of our bubble aren't even aware that we're making these big gestures, you know, like I think artists need to check themselves a little bit. I think we see ourselves like these, you know, zeitgeisty druids, and sometimes we're not that. We're like, you know, not even trainee druids or something. Yeah, so artist books and stuff, that's a popular thing for me to make. You know, there's a kind of earnestness around zines and making books that I can't help but want to attack, you know. a worthiness and like a kind of a preciousness or something has kind of descended a bit over the art world. And I miss the kind of the daft or the kind of not light-hearted, but the kind of acerbic elements of the art world that I think have kind of disappeared a bit, you know, like, yeah. Here's another curator taking an afternoon off in a cable car. And my absolute bête noire panel discussions, you know, these horrible 2-hour plus nonsense-a-thons where people like twist their ankles and like, I honestly didn't go to art school to be involved in anything like this, you know, a panel. I can't think of anything worse. It seems to me like that there's like a kind of cabal of clever people that have like descended on the art world and are like the Borg, have taken it over with their like big brains and stuff. And I wish they'd just move on to dance next or like theatre and just leave visual art alone for a while, you know. No, this is not a popular opinion, and maybe, you know, clever artists would just say I'm thick saying that, but it's what I think and it's my talk, so I'll say what I like. So coming up, the people at Art on the Underground or Transport for London Art, I can't remember what their official title is, they asked me to design a tube map, and this is the tube map that was like current when the COVID crisis started, I think. And I made it kind of in response to Brexit a little bit. And these figures were like the kind of, you know, the kind of sweet smelling, urbane kind of culture bods that I kind of associate with London, you know. And I suppose they're kind of like naive in this, they're kind of, there's a naivety about the way they're caught up in this situation here. Like these people are like, yeah, slightly, I don't know, posh, discombobulated bods. I don't know what they are. I'm not sure exactly myself what it is, but anyway, it kind of stemmed from the Instagram drawings. And silly spectacles, of course, is one of my favorite things. You know, that architects and curators and artists always wear silly spectacles as if to celebrate their eyes, because their eyes are their business, you know. Oh, I'm just going to gloss over this. It's a monument that's also a head. I don't know what it is. That's the thing with not being like a super bright academic artist, is sometimes I just have to be honest and say, I don't know what this is about. I just made it. And I'll tell you, you know, when that's the case. So I don't know what this is about. I just made it, you know. And I do know what this is about. This is it's those people that work at the front desk of high-end commercial galleries that are like super clever, very attractive, dress well, but are really rude when you ask them stuff, you know, like, so yeah, it's about them. And it's made with real hair and wood. I don't know what this is. This is Spudulike in Chester. And below Spudulike in Chester, there's a hypercaust from when the Romans were there. And apparently emergency archaeology was born after, you know, amazing chunks of dolphin mosaics were thrown into bin bags in Chester during some awful shopping centre build. So there's these bits of like Roman Chester that you can see like this under Spudulike. And you can go down there and pay £1 to see it, or you can have a jacket potato and just go down for free. And I made a work about the bathhouse that this hypercaust was below. So to keep it warm, they had kids making, you know, taking wood underneath between these pillars, setting them alight. And apparently these bathhouses were kept hot 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Here's some, you know, old timers looking at that hypercost. So I made a work called Hypercost, and I took like, you know, those like innocent stories from local newspapers that probably you don't have so much now, but like, you know, chicken goes missing or Bowls Club vandalized by drunk youths or something. That was kind of not the stories about people dying or car accidents, but there's like a kind of community story that is slightly funny and, you know, a bit Miss Marple or something. So in a, you know, Chester's weird because it's kind of really horse and hound posh in the center, and then you've got like a kind of tougher shell, more kind of working class around the outside. So it's around the 70s, I found loads of great stories, you know, like a story about the hair that was clogging up the filter of the local swimming pool, and how a councillor bought a bag of hair in to show the other councillors how serious the situation was because of men having long hair in the 70s. Apparently was clogging the pool filters at Chester swimming pools. So this is, and I asked Barnaby Brown, the amazing musician, to record himself playing the olos, which is that two-piped, well, it's the olos, like an ancient instrument. So you should be able to hear it now.
After a snake bite, a man's life is saved by a serum driven over to the hospital from the zoo. Pot is found in a lad's trouser pocket, whilst the meat in a sausage roll is found to be mouldy. An ox roast barbecue raises over £900 for a very good cause. The burglar who breaks into the secretarial school one night picks up a piece of chalk before he leaves and writes a cryptic message on the blackboard. Good morning, ladies. The cat wishes you well. Alongside, he draws the head of a pig with a police helmet and adds the words, police pig.
So this is another work called Terremaur, which is a 4K 20-minute looped digital video work. And it shows like a day and night cycle in an imaginary city built in Snowdonia, a kind of mega city, you know, like the ones that you see built in China and, you know, like that kind of crazy building that you get in parts of the Middle East and, you know, wealthy small states and so on. And what I did was I just Googled controversial buildings and I chose the ones that I liked. And using SketchUp initially, I just placed them just to see what they'd look like, you know, around Cadair Idris, this mountain in Snowdonia. And I also managed to put in Zaha Hadid's proposed opera house for Cardiff. She won a prize to design the opera house in Cardiff. And yeah, middle-aged men stopped it, I think, from the council. So I thought it'd be great if we could actually have it in this imaginary Welsh city. And I use a voiceover a lot in my work, and there's a voiceover in this, and I discuss, or I kind of muse on the idea of like, when is a city old enough for you to start writing sentimental songs about it, you know? So I'll play you a short clip. It was in 4K because I wanted it to look like a painting that moved slightly rather than a video work, you know, like, because videos of things that don't move look bad somehow. And it's kind of done in the style of a matte painting, which was like an old cinema technique where you would create fake landscapes by painting on glass and kind of shooting through them. Now it's all done by computer, and normally a matte painting is only on screen for a few minutes just to give you, you know, the illusion of a huge sweeping landscape that isn't there. But I thought, what would it be like if you could just hang on the matte painting, you know, for an uncomfortable amount of time and, I don't know, allow the viewer to scrutinize it a bit.
A songwriter once wrote a song about this city. A song to be sung at a piano. A heartfelt, emotional song with a chorus that was almost shouted out. He sang about the feelings he experienced looking over the city at dusk and how the place could lift him up. As if it was his big brother or a friend that had been with him since he was a young boy. He described flying kites with his friends on the mountain, about running down the slopes towards the lights of the town as it got dark, about kissing a girl on the shore of the lake as thunderclouds rolled in. It was popular with the people who lived in the city, and often, if the song came on in a bar, people would join in. People who took music seriously and discussed it in a serious way were critical and unkind about the song, saying that the city was far too young for someone to start writing such songs about it, and that most of the sentiments about the city were borrowed from songs and poems about other, much older cities.
So this shows you like a sped up view of it so that you can see the lights coming on around the city as well. But yeah, SketchUp's fun like that for just putting things in weird places, you know, like to take a tower from North Korea and just stick it in Snowdonia, and because the scale is correct, just to see, wow, that's how big it would be if it was there, you know? I mean, and I think that's how crap town planners do it, I think, you know, certainly, you know, go to the Bay in Cardiff and it's like, you know, more on Jenga or something, the way the buildings are placed in relation to each other. This is an exhibition called The Gulch, and it was in the Curve Gallery in the Barbican. And I kept getting that older artist saying it's a very challenging space. Like, I think they thought I wasn't up to it or something, you know, and I had a bit of a bee in my bonnet about that. So it was, because it's like a big semicircle, tall space, you can't see the end of the gallery as you walk in, and when you walk out, you can't see where you came in. So I thought it was a great opportunity to create a sequence of kind of scenes that you could walk through as a viewer. And these slightly pervy dunes were the first thing that you came through. And behind the dune was a bonfire that was kind of, you know, smoldering, and a running shoe that was singing one half of a Welsh love song. And it was the son of the late Jan Morris singing this song, which kind of translates as "While There Are Two." And I'll tell you about the other person singing the duet in a moment. That's the shoe. There was a speaker inside. I love putting speakers inside things so that it makes them look like they talk, you know. After you walk through this kind of painted backdrop, you then went into a corridor with these kind of display cases in. And I've always loved, there was a time in the 80s where they ruined a lot of museums by putting like big, bold, yellow handrails around things and wind up things to make things talk. But I always loved old style museums that looked like they'd been, you know, set up by a Victorian pervert or something. Those like blacked out kind of aquarium spaces with like a spotlit, you know, like a skull or something like that, or a vase. And so I've always liked that way of displaying things, you know, where the viewer is in the dark and that you're looking at this kind of highly lit display case. So this is a a glass globe that used to hang in the chapel that I had to go to as a kid twice on Sunday until I was like almost 15. And when I was a kid, Methodist chapel is quite full, it's like, like a kind of hot yoga for your brain or something, that with no trimmings. It's just, and when these lights used to come on, there were 6 of them. When I was young, I thought that they were something to do with the Holy Ghost, because they were so big, and then they would just, somehow the chain that held them up disappeared, and these orbs just hung there. So I managed to get one from the chapel. They'd replaced them with newer ones, but they allowed me to have one of the old ones. In another space, there was about 30 wigged heads with rocks balancing on them. And again, apologies for being a thicko, but I don't know what this is about exactly, but there's something about stones resting on somebody's head, but not in a violent way, that is weird, I think. I've been thinking about it. I mean, maybe it's something from a dream or something like that. But anyway, these stones were arranged like a kind of tabletop for these heads somehow. This is a little model of me standing on a rock with some broken pallets and a laptop under my arm. And I got this 3D model made in a big Asda in Manchester. There used to be a place where you could get scans done of yourself in Asda. I don't think they do it anymore. And the guy told me that if you've got big, like afro hair, or if you're pregnant, the models don't stand up because there's too much weight, in proportion to the size, and they fall over and stuff. I thought that was interesting. This is a spoon from it's a story that you'd listen to on these headphones. And these are like those spoons that you have in kind of grow your own clothes, veggie restaurants where, they which table the customer's on. And it's about one of these being in an abusive situation. It's from the point of view of the spoon, kind of. And this is a jacket I had made that kind of somehow alluded to the rest of the show. So it's the titles there and different elements of the show, like the sleeves that are seen in the jackets in some way. And this is kind of to do with, that daft way that artists dress, I wonder about that because, I've got silly shirts that I'll wear for an opening and stuff, but some artists dress like buffoons, and I really wonder what their motives are with that, is it, I don't know what they think they're up to. I mean, maybe I'm just too square, to get on it myself, but yeah, anyway, this was if I was, a kind of King Dickhead artist, this is what I'd wear, to go, yeah, and be bouncing around other people's openings like a moron. This is a goat that was high up on a ledge, like a big MDF kind of gully that we made. And the goat was high up and you could speak via the goat if you went to a microphone that was further along. I haven't got the picture of it here. But you could swear or sing a song or do crying noises or, shout or whatever through the microphone. It would come out of the goat. And it was great because there's nice footage on the internet of a little girl singing a beautiful song through it and, kids doing fart noises, all that stuff. But I liked the fact that because it was a curved space, that the people visiting the exhibition could communicate with other people that were further back in the space or further along, So there's duets of the shoes. This is the other one singing the kind of alto part of the duet. And yeah, so I was messing around with that problem that the space has of, that you can't see the end when you walk in. I've missed out a few things. There was a video that was in the exhibition. I'll show you a quick glimpse of that. These are like those IKEA bookshelves that all artists have. And they were just kind of spinning around on the ceiling with those cats that wave, that you see in Chinese takeaways waving on them. And then we had events that took place in the space. This is Matthew de Kirsan Girardot's, is it called Club Nuts? I think it's called Club Nuts. So this was like a kind of poetry, yeah, like a whole load of different performers. This guy, Andrew Wren from Macclesfield, who was in the film, he held a yoga class there. And here's a short clip from the film that I showed in this kind of boardroom space that was in the exhibition.
With each breath that you take, allow yourself to relax deeper and deeper. I would like you to picture yourself as a big piece of dough. That's right, a big piece of stretchy dough. And as you imagine that, I want you to try and think like dough. Give yourself permission to think like dough. Let your thoughts be stretched and kneaded like dough. Just accept and give yourself permission to be dough-like. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to start counting backwards from 10. That's right. The baker's blade is cutting you now. And as you contract after each cut, I would like you to relax. Just relax. As the baker fashions you into 6 distinct shapes, I would like you to think about where we have just been and where we are about to go. 4 bits of you are being shaped into baguettes. 1 larger bit will become a bloomer, and the final piece, the biggest, will be shaped into a cottage loaf. Just relax and accept these shapes. These shapes feel familiar, and they are familiar. And now, as they are positioned, you accept these shaped bits of dough as your new body, legs, arms, trunk, and head. And now, as the baker opens the oven door, I want you to feel the warmth of the oven. This is your oven, and I would like you to survey every portion of your body as you are placed inside. And as you are placed inside, the incredible heat washes over you. And even if you wanted to be taken out of the oven, but you don't want to be taken out of the oven, you won't be taken out of the oven. You are rising now, every limb rising and swelling, becoming lighter, as new pockets open up inside. Arms and legs expand. They're fusing to your body now. New joints are being formed.
Okay, sorry, that's a bit crazy to watch, isn't it? So that film was about a hypnotist that listened to his own hypnosis CDs, who had a nuisance neighbor. And I made that film in Macclesfield as part of their Barnaby Festival. So it's quite interesting. Like Macclesfield was, in a survey, they realized that Macclesfield was the place that had the least cultural offer in the UK, because it didn't have a theatre, or it didn't have, it was like, yeah, so I can't remember. Anyway, as a response to that, they resurrected this old festival called the Barnaby Festival. And it was really great. They asked me to make a piece of work there, and then I decided to show it as part of the Barbican exhibition as well. So it was nice to combine work for like a big institution with a more provincial kind of project. And to be honest, you know, with me living in North Wales and working in bigger cities every now and then outside of my like small provincial life, that suits me. I like that. I like that connection to the provinces. Like
Searching.
Oh, sorry, my Alexa is talking to me. Stop it. What's funny is like there's a lot of like properly right-on artists in London that will tell you, you know, how switched on they are about a lot of things, but ask them about the provinces and the regions, and they're like Victorian in their outlook. No, like it's a lot of people that you would think know better are very rude about the provinces. And that's us, I guess, you in Bristol and me here in North Wales and people in Manchester. You know, a lot of those hotshots in London are very rude about secretly in private. You know, they tell other artists and stuff, but they are rude about the provinces. And yeah, I'm happy to
I don't see anything to connect. Check the device you'd like to use.
Alexa, stop.
Bluetooth.
Yeah, so I'm a big champion of the provincial. This is an exhibition called Rit Stink that was in Limoncello Gallery. I recreated the wood paneling from the Coach and Horses in Soho, right? We used to drink there when I was at college, and I always liked that there's these cartoons from the Evening Standard that they put on the paneled walls, but they used to hang them on the battens, you know, so that they would wobble, like they were always like wobbling or like coming off, and I kind of remembered that and thought I'd like to recreate that awkward thing. And they were all drawings that were then made into an animation about a man who had archival angst, who was worried about USB storage and, you know, the continual shrinking of USB devices and what you should do with your big devices that had your secrets on. Should you destroy them and put them all on a thumb drive? And so it's about that. I won't bore you by showing you a clip of that. This is Century Egg that was in the British Art Show, the last one. It's an advice to young artists. If people offer you Bluetooth headphones in a group exhibition, say no, say that you want your own room. Because my poor little film wasn't watched properly because it was 40 minutes long and, you know, only a weirdo keeps Bluetooth headphones on for 40 minutes. So you know, it's difficult. Somebody told me once that when you know, in the art world, there's like famous artists, arseholes, and everyone else. And then they said, like, if you're not a famous artist, what you need to decide is, are you willing to be an arsehole? And I wish I had been an arsehole and made a big fuss about the headphones. But that's, I mean, choose your battles, but that's my advice to like younger artists. Don't get fobbed off with Bluetooth headphones that don't work. So this film is called Century Egg, and I made it with the collections of Cambridge University and their museums. And it was basically like musing on the idea of when an object becomes an artifact, you know, like when things become part of a collection, what happens to them? What is their life like then? And I narrated this film as if I was a bog mummy that was being unearthed in an archaeological dig. And, you know, I was kind of also asking the question, like, whenever they find characters like this buried with jewelry and a glass of wine, they always assume it was like a burial, like some big burial rites. But, you know, I was positing the idea that maybe it could have just been drinks that went wrong, you know, and like a soiree that ended, you know, abruptly. These are papier-mâché horse teeth from the Whipple Museum in Cambridge. Amazing museum. If you're ever in Cambridge, check out the Whipple Museum. It's just, you know, this is just the tip of the iceberg of the strange things they have there. These are whales that were in the Natural History Museum that was being refurbished. And what I liked was that they were refurbishing the gallery, but protecting so that they didn't have to take the whales down. They just swaddled them in bubble wrap. And I used these whales then as kind of characters in the film, you know, like I got them talking to each other and stuff. This is the Museum of Classical Archaeology, is that right? Yeah, so they have these things in Cambridge University called supervisions, you know, which I don't know, it's like a group tutorial from what I could say. I don't know what it was, but there was these really bright students like sat at the base of these huge kind of plaster casts of statues from antiquity, you know. And but what I liked was that the building they were in looked more like a squash club from North Wales in the 80s or something, you know, those breeze blocks and the girders. There was something quite incongruous about the style of the building and the contents, you know. And there they are, having a supervision. And here's a clip. I shot the main thrust of the film in Kettle's Yard House, which was perfect because it's a museum, but it used to be a house. So like the house is now an artifact. I thought it's a really great place. The people that look after, you know, the people that invigilate it are really jumpy though. And that made me jumpy, but I didn't break anything.
This lady says exquisite many times in a week. And whilst her husband is irritated by that, he would have to agree that she says it well. She might be talking about a piece of lace or carving or a small piece of applied art in a fair that specializes in applied art. In which case, she might say it many times in an afternoon. Exquisite. 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 Exquisite.
Exquisite.
She says exquisite in an exquisite way, he thinks, and laughs to himself. Listening to his wife's voice, his mind wanders.
Exquisite.
He thinks about her in a suit of armor.
Exquisite. 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 Exquisite.
He thinks about her frock sticking out through the gaps, about her hair escaping through the gaps in the helmet. He thinks about her saying exquisite with a slight tinniness in the helmet.
Exquisite. Exquisite.
These are security guards from the Fitzwilliam Museum having a sword fight. And we borrowed the swords from Welsh National Opera. I wish they'd just given it a bit more welly. They seem a bit tentative, you know, like. But famously, that staircase near there was where that very expensive vase was knocked over. I'm not sure if you remember that, but it was a big hoo-ha about that. This is a vessel for keeping kimchi in that Grisdale Arts made of my head, and those are my ears. I mean, they're not. That is a replica of my head. They're not replicas of my ears, obviously. And they were used to keep the solids of the kimchi underneath the level of the liquid inside the head. And then the eyeballs were something to do with Lord Provost. They came out of the kiln. I went in the kiln at the same time, nothing to do with me. This is a work called The Hotel 70 Degrees. And this was a hotel with 70-degree angles and 110-degree angles that was built high on a cliff in Colwyn Bay, which is the seaside town in North Wales where I'm from. And, you know, in the 80s when I was growing up, this place was so kind of exciting looking, you know, like it was the era of like drink driving and steak and prawn cocktails and maxi dresses and, you know, I mean, that time, you know, capris. And it got demolished in the noughties because, they built a road that bypassed it, and it wasn't viable anymore. And I was really sad it was knocked down, but I thought it'd be interesting to rebuild it as a computer model. And I got to know the guy who was the manager in the 80s. He lived in Gibraltar now. And he told me exactly what patterns they had on the floor and everything. And created a story then using the hotel as the setting and the beach at the bottom of the cliff to just weave 2 or 3 different narratives in. And one of them was about this fish that dreamt about being on the beach when the tide was out, you know, swimming up and down the beach. It's the hotel. I'll show you a quick clip.
You feel the carpet shift under each step. You are going that fast. You are moving at considerable speed and accelerating. When you impact, the frontal central line of your body shifts forwards to fill the corner, and you are shaped into a 70-degree tranche of yourself. A pie portion is made of your face. You have thrown an extraordinary shape, pal. Your eyes are now on either side, pointing away from one another. And there is a fuzzy bar running down the center of your vision where you can't make things out clearly.
So, yeah, I won't show you more of that. But anyway, what I was describing there was a man who had run into the 70-degree corner of the room and like whose head had just like become the shape of the, you know, like, and then in the rest of the film, he's just like going in and out and like kind of, I don't know if you did this, but when I was small, I used to like suffocate myself with pillows, not to the point of fainting, but like I used to like go and just wonder about that, you know, when I was like 8 or something. And I thought about a man with a wedge-shaped face in a corner doing that. God, I realize how awful that sounds now. I didn't try to do any harm to myself. I just experimented with being out of breath with cushions. This is a clip of, if you look into the eyes of my face here, you can see that I'm being carried by a strong man. There I am. And this is in the caves, in the tunnels that are dug out of the rock in Salzburg. And I made a film where a strong man, we'd advertised for a strong man in the local paper. And this man came very like a strong man. He'd won competitions and he carried me through the tunnels of Salzburg. It was the first time I'd been picked up as a man since I was a child, you know, and since I was a small child, because I was tall, people stopped picking me up quite soon. And it's such a strange experience, you know, being carried by someone else. This is called Echt, and it was a work I'd made commissioned by the GI Festival, which is a really great festival in Glasgow. And what's good about it is that it's short, you know, it's like, it's quick. And it's like, it's over like in a week or 10 days or something. And festivals like that are brilliant, you know, not, oh, there's something about things that go on for months and months and months, you know. I like these like, yeah, so there's like a buzz around the GI Festival. It's great. Anyway, I'm not saying that I predicted Brexit, but I did predict Brexit, you know, like I made this film Echt about what would it be like if, you know, everything turned to crap in the UK and then things kind of got upended. And the film was projected then out of this bus because I figured, you know, when you go on a coach trip, everybody's nice when they're on the bus, but when they go to get their cases, everyone turns into an arsehole like that, you know? And that's the nasty underbelly of society is, you know, is in view there when you're getting your suitcases. And I made the film with two guys that I collaborate with often on my video works, Casey Raymond and Ewan Jones Morris. And I guess I got to know their work through the music videos they made. And I like working with them because they're not like, you know, those super professional film crews that like sharp intake of breath, oh, you can't do that. I don't like having, yeah, kind of like middle-aged expert men helping me. I mean, they're very good at what they do, but they do it in this kind of guerrilla way that I like. And so we shot this with some old people that come to Chapter Visual Arts in Cardiff, and we like duplicated them, you know, you'll see some of the same people there. And the idea was that I was in like a emergency kind of refuge with these people because this thing had happened, the big squabbles, I called it. And I think I was like sensing like the nastiness in the UK that was like, you know, like around 15 years ago, ordinary people started buying big 4-wheel drive cars, you know? And I think that was like the tremor that was telling us that there was some bad shit on the way. That when ordinary people start driving like cars that, as if they were gamekeepers, and men started wearing those Barber quilted jackets and flat caps, like everybody wants to be like Lord of the Manor all of a sudden, you know? And programs like Top Gear and that kind of slightly mean Britishness was like coming to the fore, you know? And I think the signals for Brexit were there. Yeah, just a few court cases as well at the time, like bad behavior stuff that where the public kind of sided with the villain, and I thought, ooh, there's something shit afoot. So in this imaginary hellscape, people, you know, you have these bullies that move into nightclubs and they just steal everything that belongs to other people. They hoard them. And, you know, the children of these bullies then hoard things as well. And this little guy has stolen all his neighbors' alarm clocks to make a little world for himself in his bedroom. And then these are academic bouncers that do facial bodybuilding. And the way they do that is by chewing gum. And then I kind of imagined all sorts of sports that could happen in this new world. Like weird variants of American football. Road signs were like changed, you know, and used as kind of territory markers. And bad, you know, these new royal families that were created were celebrated with iPad art instead of oil paintings. You know, they were like immortalized by iPad people, iPad artists. And here's a clip for you.
At a local level, those who were once important were lampooned and forced to perform absurd penances. Councillors were debagged and cajoled into dancing. The dances they were told to improvise had to convey their own personal fall from power. It was unbearable. Some who lost their minds as they tried to create routines were forced to create routines about being forced to create routines about losing their jobs and losing their minds, and so on. Auctioneers became town criers. Planning officers in particular were singled out. Bungalow-shaped mini tombs were built around them while they were still alive, kicking and screaming. Each town would have a small collection of these long bungalows without doors. Often, the officers' heads were left visible in grotty mini conservatories, while the rest of their bodies were walled and roofed in. The human-shaped houses were charming, despite their purpose, because of their scale. After a week, those inside would suffocate, and a different bit of them would rot in every room.
Oh, ignore that. This is a performance I did as part of that exhibition with the Glasgow Improvisational Jazz Orchestra or something. And I don't know who the two guys manipulating my legs are, but I asked them to wear all black. And the only black hats they could find had the word fresh written on them. It's quite funny. So this is a work called Starry Messenger that I made when I represented Wales in the 2013 Venice Biennial. So like Wales doesn't have a pavilion there. They have like a presence. So Wales can't be in the competition and stuff like that, but they could be in it, and they have to pay to be in it more, I think. And then you get crap from artists from England saying that, you know, it's easy to get to Venice if you're Welsh and stuff. So you have to live with that as well. But it's all right, and I really enjoyed it. So I made this work where I thought about like the tiny fragments of stone that are in terrazzo flooring, which apparently was invented in Venice because they didn't want to throw anything away. If you've lugged it all the way out to the lagoon and you've got loads of like weird shaped chips, you might as well use it for something. So this kind of weird flapjack flooring that they invented was, you know, through necessity, I guess. Also, I then thought about how the opposite of like the minuscule, like that is the kind of astronomic, and how the Catholic Church, you know, uses their own observatory to look at the stars to figure out, to look out into this, out into outer space to figure out when Easter is and stuff like that, but no further, you know, because so it's that thing about looking at the very small and the stuff that's very far away. And yeah, if I was clever, I could say that in like a beautiful sentence, but I can't. But it's about small things and how you can use gritty small things to grind bits of glass so that you can look at these small things, or you can look at big things that are far away. So granularity and how we're all made out of bits and how you can use bits to look at other bits. And it's weird because it seemed to chime with other things that were in the Biennale that I didn't know that was going to happen, but it was good. So it worked out well for me, you know, had a great time. So I had you walked in, you couldn't see anything. You triggered a sensor which illuminated the observatory. It's called Peppa's Ghost, I think. It's like an old theatre trick where you create like a kind of hologram by balancing lights. So this thing appeared to float in the distance behind this terrazzo curtain. When you walk through the slits in the curtain, then you could see and hear this observatory and inside there was the sound of a middle-aged man crying, which of course is the saddest kind of crying of all. And in the next room, there was this kind of terrazzo koi pond, weird IKEA kind of table, you know, created to look like a kind of cosmos, and a film. This is when the work traveled to the Whitworth in Manchester. Those foam blocks that we bought in Manchester were just for people to sit on because we didn't have the bleachers that you can see through that door there. But the guy that sold us the foam blocks said that the big ones, if they fell on a man, they'd kill a man, and they were really heavy. But I thought that was so crazy to think that you could kill somebody with a foam block, you know. Those are the bleachers. So you sat on these kind of American high school bleachers to watch the film in Venice. And here's a clip. I'm guessing I'm running out of time now, so I'm just going to show you this clip.
Here's another scenario for you to mull over. The stones move in and around you like ballast. It's comfy at first, and then one comes and presses down hard on your stomach. One on your feet, pushing it backwards until something snaps. The stones settle, and you are face out. Your face is out, from chin to top of forehead. The wheel comes, and 3/4 of an inch of your face is wiped away. Your eyes recede and are missed, and remain staring from a plain face. You pass out, and then come to. You don't have space even to twitch.
So I'll just fire really quickly. I've got a timer here, so I won't go over my time. I'm just going to go as fast as I can. This is a curator cadaver cake, and again, referring to my kind of hate-hate relationship with curators. So we made with Grisdale Arts, we made a ginger cake curator, and they ate all of it. And somebody from the White Cube Gallery ate the genitals. And the Italian people in the Frieze Art Fair ate the cake, and a lot of the Chinese gallerists ate the marzipan innards that we'd made. And in the end, there was nothing left apart from the spectacles. This is a barbecue encrusted with shells, an IKEA mat's made to look like a planet, drilled garden furniture. I'm a tutor now. I never used to. This is when I used to make fun of people that taught at university. I don't do that anymore because I do it myself. But it was about tutors being booted out to their jobs or doing disgraceful things, and these weird institutional doors, that kind of depressing, you know. That it's called sapele, I think, that depressing veneer. A kind of Elvis, weird guy, alien life model, pencil through adenoid person. Don't know what that is. My feet, I was made into a druid, part of the Welsh goddess of bards. So that I posed in the gear. This is a lamppost that's been knocked over. An obituary that I wrote for Ryan Gander, and an obituary he wrote for me, as if we both died on the same day in the year 2050. And then another work we made together where we introduced each other as a new character in an imaginary novel. So this is a page torn out of that novel. Welsh clogs made out of Adidas Stan Smith trainers. This is called The Teacher. Icon Gallery, I had a show there called My Bad, and I put sandbags around the outside because it was a time when there was like a lot of funding things with the Arts Council, and like it was a tough time for the arts, you know, cuts and stuff. And also the icon had inadvertently been blown up by the IRA in a previous location. I mean, their windows were blown in because they were next door to an army recruitment center. This is a sentry box that's been turned upside down and the stool has fallen to the top. A lamppost that's fallen into an approach awning. Okay, I'm running out of time now. I'm just gonna, this is called, what's it called? Oh God, Circle of Fiends, it's called. And it's about those like amateur artists that begrudge contemporary art. You know, the people that write into in the Guardian comments. So they'll see an article about Tracy Emin or something like that, or Grayson Perry or something that they don't like. And then they're all like kind of bitchy in the comments because they do watercolors or whatever, oil painting, and it doesn't get a look in. And what's weird is like they want to be part of the scene, but they don't want the scene to be the way it is. So it's like a weird kind of militancy that kind of, yeah, this kind of amateur artist, angry artist thing, you know. And I'm not kind of making fun of these, but I'm just like, it's weird, isn't it? When there's like a scene that you're not part of, feel excluded from, like you want to be in it, but you want to destroy it as well. And so this is a kind of reciprocal bad vibes, traditional painter coven or something. Right, I have run out of time now, so I'm going to stop my screen share. Oh, I've lost my cursor. I can't find my cursor. Oh, there we go.
Hello there, Bedwyr. I thought we could look at some questions and answers here, but I was wondering whether Simon would like to join us because he's the co-commissioner of your current project, and I noticed that one of the questions is addressing that. I thought we could have a look at that question now.
Would you like me to read it out, Wayne?
I do, because actually I'm not sure I've got access to it. I've just got access to the chat. So if I could leave that to you, Simon, and make my exit, that would be marvellous. I'll leave it to you. So over to Simon Morrissey, Director of Foreground.
Okay, so you might have to do some more talking and some more showing, Bedwyr, I think. So the first question that's in from Teresa Byrne, she says she's really enjoying your presentation. But can you tell us about your commission that you're now doing for the Science Museum, and how are you intending to work with the public on it?
Okay, so I'm going to show a trailer for this. So let me find it. Oh, hang on. How do I? There we go. So I got this commission jointly created by the Science Museum Group and Foreground. And it's to make work in response to this kind of Noah's Ark moment where, I mean, they're not leaving anything out. It's like Noah left some things off the ark. They're just taking everything to this huge, like, new space in Wiltshire on an airbase. And it's really like something out of, you know, like out of a James Bond film or something, where you drive across this airbase kind of in the middle of nowhere, it feels, just outside Swindon. And then you see all these amazing things just in storage, you know, like, you know, the first frozen pea machine, the last printing press to come out of Fleet Street, just amazing things that you knew about, but maybe hadn't thought about or forgotten about. But everything and anything, you know, like you can't walk for more than a few steps before something catches your attention. And, you know, like artists, there's a thing for artists to work with the public anyway, you know, that's, you know, in the last 10, 15 years, that's a thing. But actually, genuinely with this project, it's the kind of thing that if I had to do it alone would be, and it would be horrible because you wouldn't be able to chat to people about it. So, and that's what I like doing is when I've seen like weird collections, the same as when I was in the Whipple Museum, I just like talking to other people that had seen it with me about, you know, like not just store it in my head and be an artist with all this experience in my head, just like stewing with it. So the idea is that we offer the chance for people by submission to join me kind of exploring this collection through the medium of fiction, so that they would choose an item or items and use that as the trigger for a piece of fiction that they would write. Because I'm interested in that. That's in all those films that I showed you, on some level, I've taken an object and imagined a story for it, like a backstory and to be honest, that's what I like about museums and my interpretations of the things. I'm not so interested what the truth is about, you know, you can always read the label, can't you? But when you see like something in the British Museum, you have your own understanding of it. And that's what I'm interested in. So for these people that we choose, then they would be we would run writing groups, which would be held by Sally O'Reilly, whose name was mentioned there in the trailer. And she would run these kind of writing workshops with a focus on writing through objects. That's the thing. And I'll be in the workshop as well, you know, as one of the punters with the other people. Not in any kind of undercover way, just because I like writing, but I don't really know anything about it. You know, my syntax and punctuation is horrendous for a start. But I worked with Sally in the past, and she's just like an amazing person I mean, it was the first person I thought of when I came up with the idea. So that's it. I'm not sure if I have the details of how you can enter, but they'll be on the Foreground website, right, Simon?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can share it directly with the UE students that are here as well.
Great. Yeah, sorry, I thought about everything this evening apart from how to plug this thing that we're kind of talking about. I'm sorry. But yeah, so that's how the public can be involved. And it is a genuine involvement as well. Like, it's not token, you know, like helping me paint, you know, doing the ears on a big mural and then I do the face or something. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm still the boss, but like you can sit in the front with me kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. It's one of those, I think it's a nice working with a public thing. It's not token. So that I'll create a book and all these people's stories will be in it, the book. Then where I do go off on my own then is I'll take the book and I'll create a film that is a development or a response to the book in some way. So one comes first, the book comes first, the writing sessions, and then the book, and then the film. And then the film will be presented in the new collection centre in Wiltshire.
Okay, Bedwyr, I've got a related question from somebody else. They said, what is that cool sound we were listening to in the trailer? Do you want to explain where the soundscape comes from?
Yeah, do you know what? It was on that last thing there, wasn't it? I've forgotten the gentleman's name, so. Oh, hang on. I'm going to find it.
Alan Sutcliffe, am I remembering?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alan Sutcliffe. So it's called Icarus, and it was in a workshop that was run by somebody else, and I've forgotten her name, but she was a well-known kind of early electronic music.
Daphne Oram.
Yes.
Who weirdly comes from Wiltshire.
So this piece of music is in the collection as well. That's why it was chosen. So I asked if there was something from the collection that we could use, and the first thing that I was sent was that, and I thought it's perfect. It sounds like it's got that weird British sci-fi feel that seems perfect for this, you know. And yeah, it's strange that with all the talk of like kind of festival of Brexit and stuff like that, it's weird. Actually, the things that are really fascinating in terms of looking back are like innovations and stuff like that, you know, like how things were made to change our lives and how our lives influenced the making of other things. So whilst I poo-poo like our mawkish kind of nostalgia, I actually absolutely love looking at old pictures of buses that never got past the prototype stage, or like weird two-fronted cars, or, you know, strange condoms from Germany and stuff like that. Just, it's great. I mean, I without sounding like a dickhead, I love being involved with projects like this. It's just, you know, it's what my favorite thing is. It's just rooms and rooms full of weird things, you know, and being able to do it with other people that I don't know yet. I haven't met them. That's going to be exciting because they can, you know, they'll have their own little obsessions and stuff. So I'm looking forward to what we'll chat about and stuff.
And it's probably important to say, isn't it, Bedwyr, that you don't need to be a writer to apply. Just have an interest in writing and an interest in kind of exploring the objects with you. And yeah, Kate,
if you wanted to do it though, like if you were like anti-writing or something, that would be good.
Katie Barrett from the Science Museum is here as well, and Katie's really kindly put the entry details
thank you,
in the chat for people to see. So there's a couple of other questions that have come in, some very nice compliments for you as well. Really enjoying the talk, very refreshing to hear an artist not over-intellectualize their work.
There's no danger of that.
No, and so a related question from, I think the same people, yeah, from the same people. How do you respond to galleries and curators who try and get you to explain things you don't need to or don't want to?
I usually just start off answering and then I just go off on my own you know. The older you get as an artist, you can get away with that stuff more, you know. It's what, you know, I've started telling people that I'm thick the last 5 years. That seems to get me off a lot, you know, because they laugh at first and then they think, well, maybe he is thick, you know, and then great, they don't ask me anymore. Do you know what I mean? But there was, I listened to this really interesting podcast with Martin Creed and John Bishop, the comedian, which was a weird combo. I think the link to it is on Martin Creed's Instagram, but he said something about hating having to explain himself or something like that. And yeah, I agreed with what he was saying about that. You know.
So I'm just gonna, I suppose I've got a little related question to that. Not so much about gallerists and curators. This is from me, I suppose, to you. I think you talk about your work in a really direct and refreshing way, a really unpretentious way. Is that something that you have had to sort of gain confidence over your career to be able to do? You know, sort of relating to that question you've just had, like there's a kind of expectation in the art world maybe to kind of over intellectualize things or talk about things in very theoretical ways. Do you know what?
I think I was lucky. It was that, so I went to St. Martin's to study painting, and I didn't go to any of the lectures, the history of art lectures. I went to one or two, and so there was no theory at all. But I did take, you know, there were things like Bank happening in London at the time. So that's what I tuned into the scene that was around me a little bit. Obviously now, like, you know, students are clever now. Like they get pumped with information, and like there's internet and stuff. If it wasn't in the library when I was at college, that was it. You know, like if I was writing an essay, it wasn't on the internet. You couldn't find it, you know. And so you ended up writing essays about things that were in the library, and that was it, you know, like you couldn't find it or something. And so in a way, I think I've managed to, like, it's like those people that were allowed to drive without passing their test almost. Do you know what I mean? Like they were doing it long enough to, I don't think I'd probably get on to like an MA course now or something like that, because I don't think like that about it. You know, I like making it, and then I like thinking about what it is afterwards, rather than, yeah, I'm not, I know this is a college thing, but I'm skeptical about calling what I do research, you know. Don't tell the people doing the ref in my college that I say that, but it's thinking through making, you know, that's how I've always seen it. And like, I don't separate, you know, I don't research and then make or something like that. So this project is perfect in that way, because it's kind of research. You're looking at these things, but you're like thinking about what you could do with them or the idea of them. And that's perfect. I love that situation, you know, being like just in the middle of like a set of objects or in a situation, and then you're making work with it, or you're like developing a project from it somehow.
There's one more question, which maybe could relate to what you've just been talking about. So you've been asked, how long does it take you to install the kind of more complex installations with the films that you do on site? And do you ever make changes during the installation process to how the kind of work's gonna end up?
No, I usually plan it quite precisely in SketchUp. You know, I mean, that bus that we had in the tramway in Glasgow, I just downloaded a bus model on SketchUp and saw, would that fit in tramway? And I saw that it would. And that's what I built the whole installation around, that, you know, just wondering that. So by the time I installed, normally I've got a pretty good sense of the space and what it's going to look like. And, you know, things like the Venice thing took a while, because like if something goes wrong or something doesn't work, you have to like leave the lagoon to find like an amp or something like that. I think we did have to go and get an amp from somewhere, and it was so hot on the water, on the vaporette on the way back, or on the bus or something. A guy just collapsed against like the door of the bus, and just loads of water came out of his face. Like, it wasn't vomit, it was just like, and it was like scanners or something. It was horrible, like trying to get this amp, and it was hot, and but normally a week, 2 weeks or something like that. I'm not exacting like an idiot, like I often work with set design people to make the props. So they're nothing is made out of marble or jesmonite or like, art fabricators are expensive, and they basically make things that are like huge monuments that have to be carried. But theatre people are cheaper, and they make things that can bolt together and be unpacked. And like, realistically, who wants like a giant thing that I've made? It's better for it just to come down, isn't it? Like a play, there's some huge arrogance in making enormous things as an artist, I think, these days. Like, we need to stop flying for a start quite as much, and then making big stuff that you can't. I've learned that I'm not making any more big balls or anything. It's not right, I don't think. Like, but it'll be interesting after lockdown to see. I bet artists will get straight back to the bad behavior, the flying and the making big things,
Something that I think might be interesting for you just to touch on, because you talked about collaborating with the public, in something like the Science Museum project that we're working on, and you talked about collaborating with people like, say, like the staff at the museum in Cambridge, but something you do all the time is collaborate, like you're saying, with the set builders or with Ewan, who does all the animation. And maybe if you could just talk briefly about like where you see yourself as the artist in all of that mix, because you very openly use other people to achieve things that you can't, which becomes your work, don't you?
Yeah. So the way I see it is like, I could spend ages learning how to like animate or something, but then that would be like the next 10 years of me then I couldn't do the performance things. I like to be in a situation where I can pay people like a decent amount of money to work with me, so, and it's a collaboration, but I'm the boss. And I know that's like not a suit, there's a lot of stuff on Twitter where artists are saying like, yeah, you should do this, do that. But I credit the people that I work with, and I pay them well, my promise is that I'll always pay them better than I did the last time, or that they have to do less for the same amount of money or something like that. So it's getting better, it feels like, because I don't know how else I can do it, you see, because it isn't it's not a 50-50 collaboration where they conceive of the idea. Like, I script, and I often like kind of present what I want it to look like. And then the exciting bit then is like working with somebody else to see their slightly different take on it, but that's come from you talking to them, So, God, I think I'm good. Like, I haven't fallen out with anybody that I've worked with, Maybe everyone thinks I'm an arsehole. I don't know. I don't think so. I try to be like, yeah, I'd never like show a work without crediting the person or something like that. Yeah.
But it's something that's very common, isn't it? And normal in something like, say, like film, where the director is in charge and has the vision and, has authored what it's going to be, but works with lots of other people who are all special at doing their own thing. And that still seems to be, have this kind of weird status in in contemporary art that it really shouldn't. This kind of myth of the genius singular artist who does everything, which we know is completely untrue.
Yeah, of course.
Most artists have studios, you know, successful artists, lots of other people who make the work, but often it's unacknowledged rather than acknowledged.
Yeah, I've never done anything like that and not acknowledged it, you know, like, I just wish that I had like more money to pay people to do things, you know, like it's feast or famine, isn't it, as an artist? So like, yeah, artists that have got assistants, I don't know what that's like. I can't imagine that, you know, that have got assistants. Oh, like just the responsibility of like, you know, somebody turning up to my studio and then maybe being in a mood one. I couldn't have, you know, I can't afford it and I wouldn't want it, I don't think. Like, so I like collaborating as and when I'm working on something, and then, yeah, so I can expand and contract depending. But yeah, I think you should say who you worked with, obviously, like who's done what. So the films all have credits and stuff.
I was just about to say, ask people if there are any other questions, because the chat's been a bit quiet. And then just as I was thinking that, in comes another question. So Sim says, Instagram, is it a love-hate relationship for you?
Yeah, it's kind of love-hate. It's the best of a bad bunch, I think, to show things. Like, I just, like I said in the talk, I just like picture, text. It's just a great combination for me. It's like I love like the Gary Larson Far Side cartoons. You know, I just love that thing of an image and then a line that is the gag, you know, or is the thing that makes you think. And there's a simplicity to that, like image, text that I just love. And, you know, visually Instagram could look better, but you know, it's fine. And also I start little arguments with myself in the comments, and like, because that's a big thing in the last 2 or 3 years, is artists falling out on Twitter or like calling each other out, or so I've been calling myself out and like, you know, moaning about myself, and that's a lot of fun, you know. Yeah, so I kind of love it and I hate it a bit.
Well, I suppose I should ask whether anybody's got any final questions. If you do, last chance saloon, stick them in the chat now.
This is less uncomfortable than when there's no questions and you're there in person, you know, then that can be so excruciating, I think.
But you are going to have to imagine the sound of us clapping.
Yeah, that's all right.
I think that's going to work. Okay, well, I'm not getting anything new in the chat, so all that's left to say is thank you very much, Bedwyr, for a fantastic talk.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, one new message. Talk about timing.
Thanks.
Because actually, it was somebody saying well done for doing a good talk. Sign off on that.
Great.
Thanks very much, Bedwyr.
Okay, cheers, Simon.